Coming up from the AOPA Aviation Summit, a superstar talks flying, the cost of the shutdown, new AFSS tricks, and it's good to remember what the world looked like from an altitude of 2 feet. AOPA Live this week begins right now. Well, howdy, and welcome once again to Fort Worth, Texas. This is the overhead look of the Fort Worth Convention Center, our home for the next 2 days for the AOPA Aviation Summit. I'm Tom Haynes. Thanks for tuning in for our second day of coverage here on AOPA Live this week. And while the number one topic of conversation here is aviation, of course, there's also a lot of talk about the budget impasse in Washington and the effect it is having on aviation across the country.
Yesterday we talked a little about the government shutdown and what it means to pilots. One thing it means here at the show is that some of our guests can't be with us. Michael Whitaker, the FAA Deputy Administrator, was supposed to be with us. He couldn't make it because of the shutdown. I had the chance last week to meet with him, and he generally did want to be here. We're sorry he couldn't join us, but he did ask me to share some of his thoughts with you. And this is what he said. Safety is the FAA's top priority. And the agency has contingency plans to keep air traffic controllers and other essential employees working during the shutdown. He also wanted you to know that the FAA continues to be very concerned about GA and fatality rate. This is an issue we're working on together, and he emphasized he appreciates the efforts that this industry and the AOPA is making to improve safety. Finally, he wants all of us to know that the FAA is committed to simplifying the aircraft certification process. He says we still need to oversee the safe manufacture of aircraft and aircraft parts, but we need to do it any smarter in how we do it. I think that's something we can all agree with, right?
Yesterday, air traffic controllers and other members of NATCA descended on Capitol Hill to rally against the government shutdown. They were joined by many aviation industry leaders who talked about how a lot of the industry is shutting down along with the government. Aircraft are still flying, but few are sold because the FAA registry is shut down and nothing is getting certified. Meanwhile, the National Air Traffic Controllers Association is hard at work in their booth representing their members here at Summit. But AOPA Live's Paul Harrop found out many of the members are still hard at work but without a paycheck during the government shutdown.
They get you off the ground, where you're going, and back down again. This week, it's the air traffic controllers who are in a holding pattern.
Well, the government shut down, I think, 11 days ago now. We've been working without pay.
Already, the controllers are feeling the impact. Their next paycheck is half of what it normally is. Steve Hansen is the chairman of the National Safety Committee for NATCA. The shutdown is making him and his fellow union members worry and suffer.
I mean, people have mortgages, people have car payments, and it's a problem.
There will be no more pay until the government turns back on the open side. But the controllers are still at work all over the country. Many of the support staff are furloughed.
It infects everybody. Every center, every tower, every TRACON, every aircraft certification engineer, every staff support specialist, everybody.
Without the support specialist, Hansen says there could be some real risks.
It is possible that our charts won't be updated, so we'll have outdated information in the operations area. Any number of things dealing with paperwork that the controllers would use to help separate aircraft, plans and procedures, airspace issues, NOTAMs. However, all those things are NOTAMs are going, but now we have nobody to distribute that stuff within the facility. So
their message to elected officials is plain and clear.
Open the government and let's get everybody back to work.
We talked to a number of pilots and got a number of opinions. Some say we shouldn't worry about it at all because the controllers are professionals and will get paid once the government reopens. Others say they're concerned about safety from controllers that have to work with the added stress of no paycheck. On the show floor, Paul Harrop, AOPA Live.
While air traffic controllers are working without pay, the specialists in the Flight Service Station program are still getting a paycheck. That's because they don't work directly for the government. And ever since Lockheed Martin took over those operations, they've been enhancing the system to make it easier for you to know before you go. They're here in the exhibit hall to show the latest updates. Paul Moses reports.
Call it a briefing on, well, briefings. Call it continual improvement. Lockheed Martin rolling out new flight planning, tracking, and briefing services every few months, and events like the AOPA Summit are the perfect opportunity to help pilots learn how to use them. Ron Rubin is learning how to use Easy Activate and Easy Close to open and close his flight plans by simply clicking a link that is emailed directly to him.
It looked pretty simple with the demo, and I think I can figure out the rest of it when I'm at home.
The advances in technology have really been pretty amazing. The surveillance-enhanced search and rescue technologies developed by Lockheed Martin in cooperation with third-party vendors can really be almost an insurance policy to get you help in a terrible time of need. Say your plane goes down 15 minutes into a 3-hour flight. Under the old model, it could be several hours before anyone even knows you're missing. Lockheed Martin's CSAR program is different.
So this gives you the ability to be able to have our folks on our screens that will pop up that indeed there's something wrong with you in your aircraft, okay? And we'll initiate that search and rescue, diminishing the size of that search area and the time in which to find you.
That's reassuring to pilots and those who care about them.
Yeah, it makes me feel better. It makes my wife feel better too. So when I'm out there, my wife's always wants me to get flight follow-in, wants someone to be watching me, and they just told me that now my wife can see me on her laptop at home if I'm out there flying around. So I don't want her to know where I am all the time, but when I'm in the air, that's okay.
The new next-generation briefings will boil down the old 60-page briefings with every NOTAM known to man to those that clearly are most relevant to your planned flight. The goal, to give you everything you need in something you can read in about 3 or 4 minutes.
You don't want to bring that cost margin down and then all of a sudden, the safety element goes down also. So that's the important part, and that's why we're excited with working internally with Lockheed Martin, working with our other programs in air traffic, in putting it into the next gen, the FAA's next gen strategy, putting this whole flight services on top and inside of that, and working with third-party vendors for the piloting community.
Watch for features on flight risk assessment and more data link capabilities as the race continues to better connect cockpits, pilots, and the information they need. Paul Moses, AOPA Live.
Lockheed Martin also has an adverse condition alerting service, which notifies pilots of new or modified adverse conditions that arise after they've received their briefings. Continued VFR flight into instrument conditions is a leading cause of fatal general aviation accidents, and improving GA safety is at the top of the National Transportation Safety Board's list. So important, the NTSB member Earl Wayner paid his own way here to Summit after the government shutdown stopped all official travel.
We investigate about 1,500 accidents a year. About 1 out of 6 of those is a fatal accident. We have about 425 fatalities this past year. We've got 50 regional accident investigators. Their role is to be the investigator for general aviation accidents for the most part. Now, these folks are in an ideal position to see what goes wrong with the operator, with the machine, or the operating environment. They also are the ones who have to see the same thing happen over and over and over again. It's not surprising that they would put together a small team, and the team decided to address what they saw as the most prevalent high-priority accidents to be addressed. So they put together a series of safety alerts. A safety alert is a short, concise description of the problem, provides some examples of the kinds of accidents, description of what can be done to eliminate, to avoid the accidents, and identify where resources are available.
You can find those videos and other safety information on ntsb.gov. Many experts say that angle of attack indicators would improve GA safety. Bendix King introduced their new AOA earlier this year at Oshkosh. The KLR-10 is a much better alarm for an approaching stall than an airspeed indicator.
You will see a warning and you'll hear it. So let's see what happens.
Check AOA.
Okay, check AOA. Now suppose you go even a little further. You're way too slow now.
Caution. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. Too slow. The
KLR-10 costs $1,600 and is available for experimental aircraft. Bendix King representatives expect the FAA will approve the unit for certified airplanes soon. Bose showed off their very first noise-canceling in-ear headphones here at Summit. The Bose Quiet Comfort 20 uses active noise reduction to drown out sounds so people can enjoy their music in noisy environments like trains, city streets, or, of course, maybe even airplanes.
And a lot of people are very familiar with the circumaural or around-the-ear noise-canceling headsets, but this is the very first one that Bose has produced that's in your ear.
Wow, what a departure from a traditional Bose headset, huh? The Quiet Comfort 20 sells for $299. It's great for passengers, but, well, not really intended for pilots. Coming up, what do baseball and flying have in common? And recapturing the enthusiasm. AOPA Live this week from Fort Worth returns in just a moment. Welcome back. You're watching AOPA Live this week, coming to you from the AOPA Aviation Summit in the great state of Texas. Attendees to this morning's keynote session had the chance to meet baseball great Ken Griffey Jr. He's also a pilot, and I had the chance to talk to him about flying.
Intersections between aviation and baseball and strategy and all that sort of thing?
Just preparing. Preparing for, baseball, it's a little bit easier. You know who you're facing, you know what he has, you can go to sleep, wake up the next morning and go, okay, he still's got a fastball, slider, cutter, changeup, forkball. Okay, we're facing Cy Young. And in flying, it's just, okay, you've got to check the weather. You've got to check the weather on your route. You have to check the weather at the landing airport. So it's just a lot more, the mental side is a lot more for a pilot than it is for a baseball player. Mm-hmm. Plus, you always got somebody telling you from the dugout what you're doing wrong.
Right.
Yeah.
And a few fans probably also pointing out from time to time.
Sometimes you don't really hear the fans. Okay, yeah, you do.
He's clearly an enthusiastic pilot and certainly likes his Cirrus. Okay, we know this is a Homer Simpson duh, but it's pretty clear that if you want people to fly more, make flying cheaper. As we've told you before, Redbird Flight Simulations is offering $1-a-gallon avgas to collect data on how much price affects flying. Boy, were they surprised. Normally they pump 4,000 gallons a month in San Marcos. Now they're pumping 8,000 gallons a day, and they say airplanes and pilots that haven't flown for a long time are in fact back in the air.
Just because we can't keep it at $1 doesn't mean we haven't brought pilots back to flying and re-energized them around their airplanes. And the long-term effects of this is what we're actually looking for. And things like this, and maybe it's not $1 a gallon gas, but things like this happening at different places around the country could be a big factor in bringing pilots back to flying.
But sadly, Redbird is going to have to stop $1-a-gallon gas on October 15th because they're literally running out of gas. But you can still fill up on your way home from Summit. Another organization has been working for 4 years now to encourage nonprofit groups that do good work using general aviation. And this year, AOPA President Mark Baker recognized the Lightspeed Foundation with an AOPA Presidential Citation.
So what is this? I want to present you the Presidential Citation here for Lightspeed Aviation Foundation and for all the things you do to give back to the community. So,
wow.
So recognition from AOPA. Thank you for what you do.
Oh my gosh, well thank you.
Thank you.
That's surprising and wonderful.
The foundations of giving back and what does it mean to Lightspeed and your associates, the people who work with you? And how do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, it's core to me and I think to the company. I think there's an obligation that we have as businesses to give back to the communities we live and serve in. And that can be the locality like Portland, Oregon in our case. And we have programs to do that through the company, but also to give back to the marketplace community that we serve in. And so there were a lot of needs that, as you know, this market has, particularly around growth and greater awareness and rallying up people and to have folks understand both within and certainly outside of our community all the great things aviation does. And so I want to figure out some way to give back and to do it in a way that can mobilize the assets that we have, the pilots and the great organizations that are doing amazing stuff.
Flying Wild Alaska pilots John Ponce and Luke Hickerson have been enjoying AOPA Summit. They looked around for gear to take back to Alaska and enjoyed the aviation camaraderie.
Shows like this kind of are promoting what all of us enjoy already every day. And so it's kind of fun for us to, one, get out of Alaska where, you know, it was blowing rain sideways when we left and at 40 degrees. It's kind of changing temp, you know, changing seasons right now. But get down here, it's still a little bit warm out, and interact with other people who enjoy aviation as much as we do, you know.
Flying Wild Alaska has ended, but both Ponce and Hickerson are still pilots with Era Alaska. A surprising hit this summer has been Disney's Planes, the movie about a plucky crop duster with a fear of heights who still wants to compete in the world's biggest air race. And much of what makes the movie work is it's true to life.
And the research that went into this film was incredible. So the filmmakers got a chance to go on helicopter flights and fixed wing aircraft, go to all the different air shows, visit air museums, and even probably the chance of a lifetime experience of landing on a working aircraft carrier. And then, not to mention all of that, but we have a director who worked on this film. His name is Clay Hall. And he comes from a long line of aviators. So his grandfather flew, his father was a naval aviator, and he was actually born in Dayton, Ohio. And when the family moved out west to California, he remembers some of the earliest things for him. The family would pack up the station wagon, get a burger and Cokes, and go to Van Nuys and watch the planes touch and go out there. So it's really in his blood, and even the first drawings that Clay has before he went over to art school, he went to Cal Arts, even the first drawings he has are all of airplanes. So it really came full circle for him, and ultimately he was able to share that passion not only with the millions of people who have seen planes, but also his own two sons too. Right. So it's really incredible.
Nice. Dusty Cropopper is a hit with the kids out at the Airport Fest. Planes on DVD and Blu-ray will be out in November with additional features that will interest pilots of all ages. Indeed, Dusty's appearance at Airport Fest drew a much younger crowd. And well, there will always be a concern about the challenges facing general aviation. As Paul Moses tells us, it's good to remember why we fell in love with flying in the first place.
3-year-old Everett Smostrala is having a very good day. So is his entire family.
He saw the picture, and once he found out Dusty was here, he wanted to come see him.
How many of us have lost that playground-like feel that comes with a trip to the airport? Years and expenses have a way of doing that. But it's there, the planes, be they animated or in some ways antiquated, with both a lot of years and expenses, well, they're all helping spark a passion for flight in the generations to come.
Make sure the pipes are good and tight. Get in here, make sure nothing's in there.
Jonathan Oliver is an aviation evangelist, you might say. He flies the Commemorative Air Force's C-45, the bucket of bolts.
I've taken a number of people on their very first ride ever in an airplane, and it's nothing but huge grins and smiles.
A twin-engine tail dragger, this plane can be both a challenge to take off and land and a joy to fly.
And we reach over here as a starter.
Part of the Commemorative Air Force wing that features Fifi, the only B-29 still flying, and a B-24, Diamond Lil.
And then even when we're on a ramp, there's lots of kids that come up, and if they would really like to be a pilot, we put them right up in there. And it is a great introduction to general aviation.
Introductions like the one young Everett's experiencing. He may be 3, but think this isn't igniting a dream?
He wants to be everything one day. I'm sure he'd love to be a pilot. Based on what we've seen here in the last few minutes, he'll probably be a pilot before he starts driving.
It's a playground.
All right.
Only these toys are pretty loud. You don't just have to watch either, although at times that's fun too. When it comes to flying, it's all about the dream and the wonderful fact that no matter how old, the future is ours. The dream can become reality. Paul Moses, AOPA Live.
And so that little guy, I think, would fit just great in this shirt, don't you think? And that's it from Fort Worth for now. We'll have another special AOPA Live this week tomorrow. See you then.